Aunjanue Ellis Taylor. You star in Origin as Isabel Wilkerson, the journalist and author whose book Caste inspired the film, and the book theorized that oppressions around the world have these deep connections to them. How much did you know about Wilkerson and her work going into the film?
Well, I was familiar with Miss Wilkerson by her reputation as being Pulitzer Prize winning journalist, her work in the New York Times, um, The Warmth of Other Suns, which she also won a Pulitzer Prize for. So I knew her by reputation. I was aware of the book Caste, but I had not read it, had seen interviews that she did about it. Um, but what was interesting to me beyond what I knew of Ms. Wilkerson being just this incredible writer was this idea of caste and her reintroducing it to us as Americans as a new language for us to consider for us to consider social divisions in this country. And that was exciting to me and interesting to me. So it was on my reading list. I bought it, but I had never read it.
Um, and what's interesting about the film is that it tells the story of her work and her ideas alongside the story of her life and some
Mhm.
losses that she was experiencing at the time. What did you think about that kind of juxtaposition of seeing both those sides of her work and her life?
Well, I think, that was what how Ava wanted to tell. She found, as I did when I found out about Ms. Wilkerson's personal life, that in the middle of her writing this transformative book, she was experiencing all of these losses. She lost her three people that were essentially the loves of her life. And it kind of set her on this path of discovery at the same time dealing with this incredible grief, overwhelming grief. And I think that's fascinating. I think it's fascinating, first of all, that you are experiencing the interior life of a woman genius. And then also what, no one grief does not time itself to your convenience. Like you can be in these moments of incredible inspiration and moments of innovation, and it doesn't care. It shows its face, whether you are ready for it or not.
And did you get a chance to meet Wilkerson or talk to her before making the film?
No, I didn't. By the time I became a part of the film, she and Ava had kind of come to this, you know, space of work, approach to the work where Ava would sort of just do her thing with it. And I just kind of followed along with that. I respected her space.
And what was the most challenging aspect of taking on this role, would you say?
Um, nothing. Just nothing. I was working with someone who I wanted to work with again ever since I did when they see us with her, a few years ago. I wanted to continue that work. I believe she's a director of consequence. Um, and I think that Isabel Wilkerson is one of the most brilliant minds in our um discussion about who we are as citizens of the world. She's a voice we need to listen to, we need to hear, we need to heed. So there was nothing challenging for me. I mean, there were moments where you saw that, well, in the film, there's a great deal of emotional work that I have to do. And I think that there were times when I had to sort of say to Ava, I have to stop here and stop because, I would have sometimes have to go to my own reservoir of pain to do it. And that was overwhelming sometimes. And I also didn't want to be indulgent. I also wanted to make sure that even though that I was pulling from things, um, that whatever I was pulling from made sense for Miss Wilkerson and the story we were telling.
And would you say this experience working with Ava DuVernay again was different than your experience on When They See Us, which was, you know, a four-part limited series as opposed to like a standalone film?
Um, it was different in that, When They See Us was a cast of thousands. Um, and I don't even know if Ava really remembered working with me too much in that, so many people who worked on that project. This was, of course, a lot more intimate. She and I had really involved intimate discussions about, what we were doing, the story that we were trying to tell. We would have arguments, we would have discussions, we would have moments of shared revelation. So this was a lot more intimate experience with her.
And did working on this film leave a strong, like, lasting impact on you emotionally or intellectually, the way you think about things like, you know, caste and inequality?
Yeah, I mean that's what's exciting. What was exciting to me when I had, was listening to her interviews in 2020, this idea of a new language. It's not new, but it's new to us. We have used it and we understand it and how it applies to, Asian cultures, particularly in India, caste. Um, and it was something that I had witnessed in a work situation that I was in with another actor. They had an assistant. This was an Indian actor, and they had an assistant. And I just noticed it felt to me that the way that this actor was treating this assistant felt like something that I had never witnessed before. And then when I did the film and was reading the book, and I said, this is what I was witnessing. I was witnessing the articulation of the caste system as it is in India, but then I'm understanding that I'm living within that same caste system here in this country. um, and not being aware of how it expresses itself in my daily life, and using race to understand it, but not using caste to understand it. And I think that what's important about this new language and a new way of thinking about it is that you don't have to be a white American to operate as someone who wants to maintain the higher caste. You can be any color, right? Um, and be employed or act on behalf and the behest of the higher caste, which explains, for example, why Black police officers can can brutalize other Black people because they are acting on behalf and at the behest of the dominant caste.
And what do you hope resonates from this film with audiences who see it?
Well, I hope, I hope that I hope that it inspires discussion. I hope people watch it and feel like Ava used this term and I love it. Ignited. Like I hope people watch it and feel ignited by the ideas in it. Um, will want to reach across the aisles and talk about it with people who they would necessarily talk about it too. I think the value of this for me is understanding how people who are in the lower caste are affected all around the world, and that knowledge of it will buoy us in resisting and fighting it. So that's what I hope. I hope that it will cause a discussion that that is worldwide.
And recent years have been really exciting to watch your career, since, when they see us, Lovecraft Country, King Richard, and all the work you've done this year in Origin and Justified. It feels almost like the Aunjanue that we're experiencing. At least that's how it feels from the outside. How would you reflect on this period of your career right now?
Listen, no, listen, there is only one Assance, and that is Beyonce. There is only one. Um, yeah, I mean, I worked a long time where nobody paid attention to anything that I was doing. Failed pilots, movies that never saw the light of day, movies that were in the theater literally one weekend, or if they got released at all, or I had a small role in, a big movie, but I was like number 25 on the call sheet or whatever. And there was a long time of that. And then in the last few years, I've have had these opportunities to work with these really outstanding directors and I would say highly voiced um filmmakers. And I guess that sort of changed the course a little bit, changed my path a bit. And I'm happy about that. And I just hope it continues. I take nothing for granted. Nothing.
And multiple projects that you've worked on have dealt with issues of justice or the lack thereof in some cases. Is that something that draws you to stories or characters, or is that just kind of been a coincidence of opportunities that have arisen?
Yeah, I think it's probably hopefully in the air that that's the kind of work that I like to do, you know. And I think maybe it's I think it I don't know. I I tend to I tend to be outspoken about things that that anger me, that enrage me. Injustice being one of them. I'm from Mississippi, so I'm speaking constantly about things that are happening there and across the South, with Black folks, with women particularly. Um, so I think perhaps because I have been vocal about those things, maybe directors sort of hear that, you know, and reach out to me when they are telling these kinds of stories, and I'm not mad about it because it's the kind of work that I find it makes me want to get up in the morning and go to work happy.
In addition to the praise you're getting for your work in Origin, you got a Critics' Choice nomination for Justified City Primeval.
Mhm.
What interested you in playing that role of Carolyn Wilder, who has these kind of moral compromises that circumstances have kind of forced upon her?
Well, I'm a book nerd, so I knew that, Justify was based on Elmore Leonard's work. I love Clearly I love doing adaptations. Um and Yeah, so I was interested in that. I was interested in that world. I had worked with Timothy Oliphant a long, long time ago on something. And so all of that, kind of combined. And I talked to the people who were the showrunners, Dave Andron, and I appreciated what they wanted me to do, which was to, you know, bring myself to Carolyn, because Carolyn wasn't written for a Black woman. You know what I mean? So I had to, I had to say to them, more than a couple of times, a lot of times, that, we have to, I appreciate the character, but I'm playing her. So what does that mean? And I don't see that as a bad thing. I see it as an opportunity for something. And I felt like they saw it that way as well. So I just had fun. I enjoyed it. I had a really good time.
And what do you think whenever, your work ends up in awards conversations like when you're nominated for a Critics' Choice or when you were nominated for an Oscar for King Richard? How does that feel as an actor?
Well, it feels for me, who's someone who's not used to that. I've been working a long ass time, excuse the ass, but I've been working a long ass time and never been nominated for anything really. So it just feels very new. It feels very, very new. I have to say this, for me personally, what it means is I can work more. People will look at my work and go, okay, this she has a track record, and they will maybe want to hire me more. But the other side of that is that if I'm in a conversation of praise about my work in Origin, then the movie will have a chance to live, have a chance for a healthy life in the theaters. And particularly for something like Origin, because of what it's about, because of what I think it inspires and and shakes in us as a culture, that's really, really important to me. So it's valuable for me to be in these discussions so that the film will have a longer a longevity.